clearer vision. He allows things to come and go.
In a logical sense, but
His heart is open as the sky. 13. Success is as dangerous as failure. Hope is as hollow as fear. What does it mean that success is as dangerous as failure? Whether you go up the ladder or down it, your position is shaky. When you stand with your 2 feet on the ground, you will always keep your balance. What does it mean that hope is as hollow as fear? Hope and fear are both phantoms that arise from thinking of the self. When we don't see the self as self, what do we have to fear? See the world as yourself. Have faith in the way things are. Love the world as yourself. Then you can care for all things. 14. Look, and it can't be seen. Listen, and it can't be heard. Reach, and it can't be grasped. Above, it isn't bright. Below, it isn't dark. Seamless, unnameable, it returns to the realm of nothing. Form that includes all forms. Image without an image. Subtle, beyond all conception. Approach it, and there is no beginning. Follow it, and there is no end. You can't know it, but you can be it, at ease in your own life. Just realize where you come from. This is the essence of wisdom. 15. The ancient masters were profound and subtle. Their wisdom was unfathomable. There is no way to describe it. All we can describe is their appearance. They were careful as someone crossing an iced-over stream, alert as a warrior in enemy territory, courteous as a guest, fluid as melting ice, shapeable as a block of wood, receptive as a valley, clear as a glass of water. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? The master doesn't seek fulfillment. Not seeking, not expecting. She is present and can welcome all things. 16. Empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your heart be at peace. Watch the turmoil of beings, but contemplate their return. Each separate being in the universe returns to the common source. Returning to the source is serenity. If you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a king. Immersed in the wonder of the Tao, you can deal with whatever life brings you. And when death comes, you are ready. 17. When the master governs, the people are hardly aware that he exists. Next best is a leader who is loved. Next, one who is feared. The worst is one who is despised. If you don't trust the people, you make them untrustworthy. The master doesn't talk, he acts. When his work is done, the people say, "Amazing, we did it, all by ourselves." 18. When the great Tao is forgotten, goodness and piety appear. When the body's intelligence declines, cleverness and knowledge step forth. When there is no peace in the family, filial piety begins. When the country falls into chaos, patriotism is born. 19. Throw away holiness and wisdom, and people will be 100 times happier. Throw away morality and justice, and people will do the right thing. Throw away industry and profit, and there won't be any thieves. If these three aren't enough, just stay at the center of the circle and let all things take their course. 20. Stop thinking and end your problems. What difference between yes and no? What difference between success and failure? Must you value what others value, avoid what others avoid? How ridiculous. Other people are excited, as though they were at a parade. I alone don't care. I alone am expressionless, like an infant before it can smile. Other people have what they need. I alone possess nothing. I alone drift about like someone without a home. I am like an idiot. My mind is so empty. Other people are bright. I alone am dark. Other people are sharp. I alone am dull. Other people have a purpose. I alone don't know. I drift like a wave on the ocean. I blow as aimless as the wind. I am different from ordinary people. I drink from the Great Mother's breasts. 21. The Master keeps her mind always at one with the Tao. That is what gives her her radiance. The Tao is ungraspable. How can her mind be at one with it? Because she doesn't cling to ideas. The Tao is dark and unfathomable. How can it make her radiant? Because she lets it. Since before time and space were, the Tao is. It is beyond is and is not. How do I know this is true? I look inside myself and see. "22. If you want to become whole, let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, let yourself die. If you want to be given everything, give everything up." The Master, by residing in the Tao, sets an example for all beings. Because he doesn't display himself, people can see his light. Because he has nothing to prove, people can trust his words. Because he doesn't know who he is, people recognize themselves in him. Because he has no goal in mind, everything he does succeeds. When the ancient masters said, "If you want to be given everything, give everything up," they weren't using empty phrases. Only in being lived by the Tao can you be truly yourself. 23. Express yourself completely, then keep quiet. Be like the forces of nature. When it blows, there is only wind. When it rains, there is only rain. When the clouds pass, the sun shines through. If you open yourself to the Tao, you are at one with the Tao, and you can embody it completely. If you open yourself to insight,
creator one day.
you are at one with insight, and you can use it completely. If you open yourself to loss, you are at one with loss, and you can accept it completely. Open yourself to the Tao, then trust your natural responses, and everything will fall into place. 24. He who stands on tiptoe doesn't stand firm. He who rushes ahead doesn't go far. He who tries to shine dims his own light. He who defines himself can't know who he really is. He who has power over others can't empower himself. He who clings to his work will create nothing that endures. If you want to accord with the Tao, just do your job, then let go. 25. There was something formless and perfect before the universe was born. It is serene, empty, solitary, unchanging, infinite, eternally present. It is the mother of the universe. For lack of a better name, I call it the Tao. It flows through all things, inside and outside, and returns to the origin of all things. The Tao is great. The universe is great. Earth is great. Man is great. These are the four great powers. Man follows the earth. Earth follows the universe. The universe follows the Tao. The Tao follows only itself. 26. The heavy is the root of the light. The unmoved is the source of all movement. Thus the master travels all day without leaving home. However splendid the views, she stays serenely in herself. Why should the lord of the country flit about like a fool? If you let yourself be blown to and fro, you lose touch with your root. If you let restlessness move you, you lose touch with who you are. 27. A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret. "28. Know the male, yet keep to the female. Receive the world in your arms. If you receive the world, the Tao will never leave you, and you will be like a little child. Know the white, yet keep to the black. Be a pattern for the world. If you are a pattern for the world, the Tao will be strong inside you, and there will be nothing you can't do. Know the personal, yet keep to the impersonal. Accept the world as it is. If you accept the world, the Tao will be luminous inside you, and you will return to your primal self. The world is formed from the void, like utensils from a block of wood. The master knows the utensils, yet keeps to the block. Thus she can use all things. 29. Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is sacred. It can't be improved. If you tamper with it, you'll ruin it. If you treat it like an object, you'll lose it. There is a time for being ahead, a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, a time for being at rest, a time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, a time for being in danger. The master sees things as they are, without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle. 30. Whoever relies on the Tao in governing men doesn't try to force issues or defeat enemies by force of arms. For every force, there is a counterforce. Violence, even well-intentioned, always rebounds upon oneself. The master does his job and then stops. He understands that the universe is forever out of control, and that trying to dominate events goes against the current of the Tao. Because he believes in himself, he doesn't try to convince others. Because he is content with himself, he doesn't need others' approval. Because he accepts himself, the whole world accepts him. 31. Weapons are the tools of violence. All decent men detest them. weapons are the tools of fear, a decent man will avoid them, except in the direst necessity, and if compelled, will use them only with the utmost restraint. Peace is his highest value. If the peace has been shattered, how can he be content? His enemies are not demons, but human beings like himself. He doesn't wish them personal harm, nor does he rejoice in victory. How could he rejoice in victory and delight in the slaughter of men? He enters a battle gravely, with sorrow, and with great compassion, as if he were attending a funeral. 32. The Tao can't be perceived. Smaller than an electron, it contains uncountable galaxies. If powerful men and women could remain centered in the Tao, all things would be in harmony. The world would become a paradise. All people would be at peace, and the law would be written in their hearts. When you have names and forms, know that they are provisional. When you have institutions, know where their functions should end. Knowing when to stop, you can avoid any danger. All things end in the Tao, as rivers flow into the sea. 33. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. If you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. If you stay in the center and embrace death with your whole heart, you will endure forever. 34. The great Tao flows everywhere. All things are born from it, yet it doesn't create them. It pours itself into its work, yet it makes no claim. It nourishes infinite worlds, yet it doesn't hold on to them. Since it is merged with all things and hidden in their hearts, it can be called humble. Since all things vanish into it, and it alone endures, it can be called great. It isn't aware of its greatness. Thus, it is truly great. 35. She who is centered in the Tao can go where she wishes without danger. She perceives the universal harmony, even amid great pain, because she has found peace in her heart. Music or the smell of good cooking may make people stop and enjoy, but words that point to the Tao seem monotonous and without flavor. When you look for it, there is nothing to see. When you listen for it, there is nothing to hear. When you use it, it is inexhaustible. 36. If you want to shrink something, you must first allow it to expand. If you want to get rid of something, you must first allow it to flourish. If you want to take something, you must first allow it to be given. This is called the subtle perception of the way things are. The soft overcomes the hard. The slow overcomes the fast. Let your workings remain a mystery. This is called the subtle perception of the way things are. The soft overcomes the hard. The slow overcomes the fast. Let your workings remain a mystery. Just show people the results. 37. The Tao never does anything, yet through it all things are done. If powerful men and women could center themselves in it, the whole world would be transformed by itself in its natural rhythms. People would be content with their simple, everyday lives, in harmony and free of desire. When there is no desire, all things are at peace. 38. The master doesn't try to be powerful. Thus, he is truly powerful. The ordinary man keeps reaching for power. Thus, he never has enough. The master does nothing, yet he leaves nothing undone. The ordinary man is always doing things, yet many more are left to be done. The kind man does something, yet something remains undone. The just man does something, and leaves many things to be done. The moral man does something, and when no one responds, he rolls up his sleeves and uses force. When the Tao is lost, there is goodness. When goodness is lost, there is morality. When morality is lost, there is ritual. Ritual is the husk of true faith, the beginning of chaos. Therefore, the master concerns himself with the depths and not the surface, with the fruit and not the flower. He has no will of his own. He dwells in reality and lets all illusions go. 39. In harmony with the Tao, the sky is clear and spacious. The earth is solid and full. All creatures flourish together. content with the way they are, endlessly repeating themselves, endlessly renewed. When man interferes with the Tao, the sky becomes filthy, the earth becomes depleted, the equilibrium crumbles, creatures become extinct. The master views the parts with compassion because he understands the whole. His constant practice is humility. He doesn't glitter like a jewel, but lets himself be shaped by the Tao, as rugged and common as a stone. 40. Return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. When a superior man hears of the Tao, he immediately begins to embody it. When an average man hears of the Tao, he half believes it, half doubts it.
Where? On campuses?
When a
Where?
foolish man hears of
All
the Tao,
over.
he
Oh, I
laughs
missed
out
that
loud.
completely.
Massive, everywhere.
He wouldn't
Where?
believe the Tao.
You know, I go to the New York Times, I scour, I look at the top 20 articles, it's not in there.
Jesus, Randy, what are you, in a popcorn maker?
I bought something that is in a plastic container, I'm sorry. I'm not a loud person. Somehow on the app people think of me as a loud person, but in real life I'm quiet as a church mouse.
Well, when you're messing with food or a snack, maybe just to think about maybe just muting up until it's open and done. Otherwise, you never realize the background sound, how loud it can be.
You are so right, sir, and I apologize, honestly.
All right, y'all, it's my bedtime. I will talk to you all or see y'all tomorrow. After the night.
Bye, Shaw. Sweet dreams.
Be safe, Andy.
Thank you. I'm almost home. Did anyone see Larry David wrote an editorial in the New York Times page? Did anyone see it?
No.
It's about his dinner with Trump. It's basically, his dinner with Hitler. It's a parody. It's a takedown. You know how Bill Maher last week did a monologue about having dinner with Trump and how he found Trump kind of, charming? Well, Larry David did like a parody of it, talking about having dinner with Hitler. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's beyond. I think Larry David's much funnier. It's kind of forced, but in the echo chamber of the New York
Now, your
Times,
wife is who she is, but she's also who she can become, as you've no doubt noticed many times.
Randy,
And you can extract out something good or something terrible from the possibility she represents. Now, your wife is who she is, but she's also
people, like in these houses in Clubhouse, lunch with Norm in New York. They were so bad. I was like, why? It's like,
Mahmoud Khalil's wife just gave birth. FYI, about 30 minutes ago.
Mazel tov!
I heard she named the baby Idiot after the father. Kidding. I wish them all the best.
Somebody kicked me from the room.
Thus it is said, the path into the light seems dark. The path forward seems to go back. The direct path seems long. True power seems weak. True purity seems tarnished. True steadfastness seems changeable. True clarity seems obscure. The greatest art seems unsophisticated.
A popcorn maker.
The greatest love seems indifferent. The greatest wisdom seems childish. The Tao is nowhere to be found, yet it nourishes and completes all things. 42. The Tao gives birth to one. One gives birth to two. Two gives birth to three. Three gives birth to all things. All things have their backs to the female and stand facing the male. When male and female combine, all things achieve harmony. Ordinary men hate solitude, but the Master makes use of it, embracing his aloneness, realizing he is one with the whole universe. 43. The gentlest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world. That which has no substance enters where there is no space. This shows the value of non-action. Teaching without words, performing without actions. That is the Master's way. 44. Fame or integrity, which is more important? Money or happiness, which is more valuable? Success or failure, which is more destructive? If you look to others for fulfillment, you will never truly be fulfilled. If your happiness depends on money, you will never be happy with yourself. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. 45. True perfection seems imperfect, yet it is perfectly itself. True fullness seems empty, yet it is fully present. True straightness seems crooked. True wisdom seems foolish. True art seems artless. The Master allows things to happen. She shapes events as they come. She steps out of the way and lets the Tao speak for itself. 46.
Decade. Obviously.
When a country is in harmony with the Tao,
That's what I mean.
This assessment.
the factories make trucks and tractors. When a country goes counter to the...
Yeah. I think that there's going to be, they're going to see Israel for what it's been doing, because they can't hide it. They can't censor it. It's going to be patently obvious. And the hearts and minds of people are going to be won over. And there's going to be no support of Israel. And I
Delusional.
think that there's going to be enough. There's going to be enough pressure pushed to ensure that the United States does not back Israel, and that's what's going to happen. What happens when Israel
Delusional.
loses the United? What happens when Israel loses the United States?
Delusional.
It's over. Right?
Okay, but assuming America, like, I don't know, I don't see a scenario where America cuts off support from Israel, but assuming that takes place, okay, then what do you think is going to happen?
Well, that's the question. I think.
Well,
that
then
Israel's
Jesus
gonna
is gonna come back, duh, to the Mount of Olives.
Dude, why you gotta do this?
Get them out.
Kick 'em, communist, fascist, terrorists.
Cords, get them out.
I mean, I think Israel has a lot of sway in the United States. That's not going to change anytime soon. I believe there's a reality that's just going to have to be recognized. And Israel's just going to and just like you said, for the very reasons, like social media and the access of, like, information and footage from what's happening over there. Israel can't commit to what is necessary for the survival of a Jewish state. So, based on that, I mean, Palestinians are, what's necessary for the survival of the Jewish state is the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, of Arabs from the territories that are now the West Bank and Gaza. Yeah, so especially the West Bank, they need to ethnically cleanse these people, and they have not been able to do so because the Arabs understand the long game. So they understand that Israel doesn't need to be defeated in total war. All it needs to be defeated is through, demographics. That's all it is. And at the end of the day, Israel is going to have to annex these territories, and these territories, if annexed, are going to have to include the people in these territories. And it might be a time where, they're not given equal rights or citizenship, but eventually the world is going to call out apartheid. When these territories are annexed, it's going to be clear. There is no going to be, running around the bush on the whole apartheid accusation. So, and they're just going to, just like what happened in South Africa is going to happen again. I mean, that's my vision. And at the current rate, we have 50-50 almost demographics, Arab, Jewish, in the historical land, like between the river and the sea. So that's just going to be, and once that kicks in, and assuming a peace scenario happens in the region, and borders open up to each other, that's it. It's over for the Jewish state. It's going to be Arabization. So they're just going to get all Arabized. History's going to repeat itself.
We don't even need a state of our own. We just need a territory where we can build,
Read the law for
Palestinian,
all.
West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, where we can actually
Now
build,
is the
and we
all
don't have to call
important.
it a state. As long as Israel does not have the project of occupying
This is called a quiet room for quiet atheists. Shh. This is a quiet room for quiet atheists.
That's right. No yelling.
No yelling aloud. That's the number one rule. This is an ASMR shh room.
Yeah, something like that. No, it's just the other rooms just get so loud and wacky.
It's intense because when you're listening to it, there's so many variables and so much like hyperbolic communication that I think it really takes a drain on like the listener's mental health.
That's probably true. But I mean, I feel like people are attracted to this kind of like disaster porn. Like I'm no different. Like I definitely go, ooh, disaster porn. Let me listen to that for a little bit. But it's like people working in a slaughterhouse. Well, no, that's a bad analogy, but it's kind of a good analogy at the same time.
I mean,
I think we stew in the mire of bullshit for a while that like it can become harmful.
I don't know. I think if you look at it as like a comedy club, it's probably a better reframe.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because even in Andrew, you know, basically he is Woody. Somebody called him Woody from Toy Story, and he's like a caricature or character in the sense that you can hear him try to be funny, but he also plays like this American character, like okay, Bucko, okay, buddy. Like his communication is very motif or genre or category. So I don't know. He's just I don't know. He can't get out of his position. You know, he can't get a new script and go on stage and try to perform something else. It's always the same performance. But then sometimes he slips and he becomes immature, and thus insincere and a comedian and ludicrous and ridiculous, you know, and maybe even annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about him is that he feels like a representation of a wider populace, right? Like there's a whole lot of Andrews in the United States, and that's there's just this sort of like, oh yeah, we're kind of doomed, right? Because there's just this inability to go beyond this platitude, this like stage that he's on that he just can't see beyond.
I mean, imagine if you could fly him out to like some rural village in India for some like weird Hindu festival or something. You know, what's he gonna say to people? You know, like just how
I'm going to hell. You're satanic.
well, meaning like how stupid is it really to not, you know, when in Rome, you know, do as the Romans. I mean, just embrace the moment now. So all your words and all your rhetoric is it's missing the actual comprehension of what you are espousing is the truth. So that's the problem with Christians is if Jesus attained enlightenment, taught enlightenment, the fact of the matter is none of these Christians on this app are actually recycling, regurgitating, or even discussing the enlightenment of Jesus and what the philosophy is behind this, you know, super historical person. So, I mean, maybe he is, but even then, it seems like it's a bad take. So it's just not full comprehension.
But that's compelling. Like like what is the philosophy of Joshua the Christ, right? Like as a character, like that's compelling. That's a compelling conversation because there are a lot of things that come with Jesus, right? Like he hung out with hookers, he hung out with sick people, he was not very fond of the exchange of money in religious institutions. There was a certain amount of like fucking rebelliousness and sort of like anti-empire, right? Because obviously the Romans are there fucking shit up. And like all those qualities are things that I can empathize with. And those are the things that, like, you're right, maybe Andrew does talk about these things, but never when we're in the room.
I don't know, to me, Jesus is like a movie made in Hollywood, where it's so perfect and so extreme and polarized, meaning that the death, his crucifixion, his torture, but his political activism and trolling of the religious and political establishment. It seems to me like the Passion of the Christ, you could actually make it into like a horrific comedy because it's just so fantastically ridiculous, meaning that there is no resurrection, there's no putting your fingers in the holes with some spirit and, rising 3 days later and all like that's when the story gets really ridiculous. So everything else I think leading up into that is like believable, meaning it's like Saved by the Bell. It's about somebody's journey of temptation, and then trolling. I don't know it because the whole thing is in the backdrop of Rome, and so how basically in the pogroms of the Jews, like they use Christianity as a way to scapegoat the Jews, to take what they have or to punish them and be wicked and cruel. But what I'm trying to say is the Romans and their or their absorption of Christianity. I don't know what the context is with the Jews. I mean, I know that the Romans destroyed the Jews in I think 70 CE with Titus and the destruction of Jerusalem. So I don't know, like America. See, like people have accused Andrew of being anti-Semitic or a Jew hater, and a lot of people don't like Israel and the Jews or the Zionists or whatever. So even now, there's this whole paradigm of political overtone and possible like scapegoating and bigotry or troping and things like that. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm just saying is the story is just repeating itself over and over and over again.
Well, but I mean that there is a sort of clear delineation between Judaism and Zionism, right? Like they're not mutually exclusive. So you can be Jewish and not a Zionist, and you can be a Zionist and not be Jewish. And I think that the kind of arguments against Zionism, I think, are pretty sound.
But isn't every country Zionism because it's just nationalism?
No, it's not. Nationalism is saying that the people born in this country are the best people in the world, blah blah blah. Right? Like this is extermination plus or internment, right? Like Gaza Strip is walled off, and there's a foreign entity that controls whether or not these people have water and food. And for the last year plus or whatever, they've just carpet bombed the fuck out of these people in a disproportionate war, right? That is done in really ugly, malicious ways.
But can you ever think of a war that wasn't disproportionate?
Well, I think World War II, Allied versus the Nazis, I think that was proportionate. I think Vietnam.
Really? You think it was even in the beginning? See, a war is a continuum. So there are times in the continuum where it's more disproportionate as it is proportionate. I mean, the beginning.
I don't think that Israel versus the Gaza Strip is a just war, right? So like there is a difference between just wars and unjust wars.
You don't think it's retribution for October 7th that it's justified?
Like 200,000 plus dead people versus how many people died at that event. And
Yeah, because
killed by the IDF.
Yeah, force doctrine is always like 10-1 or even 20-1. So meaning that if you are a successful military, you sacrifice one soldier for every 10 to 20 kills. I mean, these are real historical
These
statistics.
Are civilians that we're talking about. Like the UN agrees with me, right? Like a lot of military people agree that this is not the way you wage war.
Really? This is modern. This is modern war theory. I don't understand what's not modern about it.
Exterminating civilians? Do you think
No,
that's
it's.
okay?
I think it's proportionate. I think 200,000 out of a population of 2 million is natural causality or
No,
casualties.
it's not.
Well, I'm just saying that's what the book says. Then,
The book?
yeah, military doctrine books.
And I don't think in modern times we consider what Israel has done to Palestinian civilians as justifiable.
I don't know. I mean, I've read a lot of history, and when you read history, it's so horrific that this to me doesn't seem out of line with all the history I've read. It seems to me like to be exactly what I've read, meaning that there's nothing out of the ordinary here. On average. It's not a popular take, but on average, I think this is falling in line with the averages of conflicts, military conflicts.
Yeah, I don't give them a pass for ethnic cleansing and for attempted genocide. I don't.
Yeah, but then how do you rationalize the terrorists on October 7th rampaging and killing and taking hostages and burning bodies and doing horrific things on October 7th at a peace concert? It was a peace concert.
Everything that had happened before October 7th, like, there was already a body count of Palestinian civilians that year.
Yeah, but that's
Right,
like
so
saying it's
like
connected to the year
where
that's like saying it's connected to the year 70 CE. You could claim continuum, but the now is all important.
Violence happening within a year is not the same as like thousands of years ago.
But when do you stop? Then you got to make the decision. Then what year do you stop taking in what year do you stop taking in history?
The year that they're in.
So your judgment is only based on a specific time frame within 1 year of the most recent activities. That's how you
can go all the way to 1948 if you want.
But you can't go past 1948. You won't go any further back in time.
How far back?
Because I'm making the point that the now is all important. That's what philosophy teaches. Thus, it's a history hypnosis game. And when you say that it wasn't okay, well, that's my theory, anyways. Can't take the conversation.
And I think this is why the Arab League has stepped up and have proposed a plan, have come up with and said we will pay for it, and this is how it's going to be done, and they understand once reconstruction begins, then that's the end. You can't have war with people that are building. That's the opposite of the narrative that they've been building for 60 years. So I think look at the letter. It's over 200,000 people have signed on, and that's what we just don't know about. A lot of IDF reservists, even the 8200 group. There's a lot of division.
Israeli army could complain all they want. At the end of the day, insurrection. I don't see insurrection taking place in the IDF ranks.
But it doesn't have to be a full insurrection, though. It doesn't have to be full. It doesn't have to be a full insurrection. It just has to be a lot of cracks in the Israeli political system and in Israeli society. And if you take the pressure off of where they're not occupying the West Bank, they're not going in, they're not conducting military operations, then they have to go somewhere else to stay in power. They have to have a war with somebody else to stay in power. And if they don't, then they can't rally around the flag, and that's what it comes down to. The rallying around the flag has lost its meaning, has been diminished, and now they're in a position where there's nothing that they can do in the West Bank or Gaza that would actually make Israel powerful, make Israel the way it was 10 years ago. I just don't see a scenario of that. I mean, economically, I don't see it. Politically, I don't see it. Diplomatically, I don't see it.
Again, the West Bank, Israel's presence in the West Bank is necessary for for the Jewish state to exist, to continue. They need to get rid of they need to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians. This is just, they have to. It's not an option.
Okay, what about the settlers? What about the settlers?
They're going to expand. They're going to continue.
No. are the settlers, are they in line politically, ideologically, with the upper echelon in Israel right now that is calling the shots? Most of them.
Actually, the settlers are at this point running the game. They've taken Israel hostage, because these guys are committed to the settlements, and they're not. They're going to continue the policies that they're doing. They're not going anywhere, and at that point, Israel needs to accommodate for them. They're the minority who's controlling the majority at this point.
And you think the white European Zionists are going to allow them to do this? Specifically,
it's not an option. They don't have any options.
I don't know. I mean, I think they have options. They're not good options, but they have options. I just don't see them allowing the settlers to take over the government of Israel. I just can't. I can't imagine them sitting by and saying, you know what, you could take over, and it's the secular European.
They don't need to take over. The settlers don't need to take over. They're just a reality that you're going to have to contend with. They are not going anywhere. And you're not going to force them out. You're not going to quit. These are 700,000 people armed to the teeth. There's no one that's going to try to remove these people. They're here to stay. These settlements aren't going anywhere. That's what everybody needs to recognize. 700,000 people armed with M16s and light, now, they've been actually
everywhere
smuggling
and will always be
they
everywhere. Love is the
They had
law.
explosives. And they've been
Am I
they
get
have some
through?
sort of infrastructure going on.
Who are they getting ready for a war against?
They are getting ready for war against anybody who is going to displace them from what they believe is Judean.
And who would that be?
Whether that's the IDF,
Cynic and Edward are lonely men with very little love.
Who do you think it is? Okay,
If they only knew the law.
They will engage. They will fight.
Right, and I think it's the European, it's the secular society, government of Israel is
Do it.
the one that is going to be engaging with the settlers. I see a clash between them because both of them cannot exist
Do
at
it.
the same time.
Okay, you're talking about civil
Please,
war.
the master.
No, not a full civil war.
Actually, Netanyahu talked about this today, yesterday. He literally said there won't be civil war in Israel.
Cynic and Edward are lonely men with very little
Because there'll be
love.
civil war in Israel.
If they only knew the law.
Because all the signs are pointing to that.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly, because you're going to have to deal with these settlers.
And that's what I'm asking you, like, who's going to deal with
Then
them?
you hate yourself.
It's not Palestinians. It is.
Well,
To
to
understand
avoid
that.
civil war is to just simply give them what they want.
No, because they cannot exist at the same time that the secular government exists. So you're saying give them the entirety of Israel, which was built for Europeans by mostly Europeans.
The majority of it isn't European anymore.
But the upper echelon is, and they are the ones in control. They're not letting go of Israel.
It's a democracy.
I mean, America's a democracy, but who's in charge? It's white people on the top.
It's the oligarchy that's looking out for their interests, sure. So at the end of the system is set up to serve these people anyway.
Yeah, so where are these people coming from? Not from the settlements. From Israel property, right?
I understand, but for the interest of Israel, like the overall, like if they have to choose scenarios, clash with the settlers, civil war ensues, pretty much you're calling for the end. You've killed yourself. You've destroyed yourself. And this is how usually Jewish king, before Israel and Judea, this is how they fell. So, but civil war means the end. This is the end. So they're gonna avoid this scenario at all costs. So they're just gonna allow the settlers. They're gonna continue settlement expansion, and they're gonna seek annexation. That's just the inevitable reality. The only thing that I could say a middle ground scenario is that Israel, in a way, just pulls out of
Palestinians are an
certain
Islamic jihadist terrorist movement.
between the West Bank and just like
The
shores
war
up and contains the settlements into
never
like the
ends.
major blocks that they're in, and just ensure the settlements don't infringe on the
This is a
Palestinians and vice
forever
versa.
war.
That would be the middle ground scenario, but that's just a ticking time bomb waiting to happen too. So you're just
But you're assuming that's what the settlers want, and they'll be happy with that.
With the right to
This,
land.
I think the settlers have been quietly taking positions in the government and their goal is
The right
to take over the government. They want the government to be the settler government.
And they might do that. I feel like they've already have in a way. Like
I just don't think that the secular, which is predominant in Israel.
Secular, but like they're not winning any elections. When was the last time they won?
I don't think it's going to be about elections. I mean, I just don't think. I don't think so. I think civil society will start breaking down.
Okay, so they can do civil disobedience on the behalf of the left in Israel is just going to do.
No, not the left. No, I'm not saying the left. It could be the right, like the Likud party. They are secular European Jews, just like the left are. So we're not talking.
The Likud is Mizrahi.
Likud on the top is white European. They won't let.
Likud is a Mizrahi movement. You understand, right?
Likud is the opposition to the. Likud was around before the Mizrahis were a majority. Likud is and if you look at the Likud, I mean, who is it? It's all these, Netanyahu and these, European Jews, and now they've attracted the Mizrahi, they attracted the settler movements. They're using them, but like Shin Bet said, the head of Shin Bet said that the existential threat to Israel, the number one existential threat to Israel, is Jewish terror, and he's referring to the settlers. So there's going to be a day of reckoning when it comes to the settlers and to the traditional Israelis in Israel proper.
Yeah, you might as well keep their anger faced towards the Palestinians. I mean, Israel has committed. That's it. There is no reversing what Netanyahu started after Rabin. I mean, it's over. You can't reverse. You've unleashed this monster. This monster's out there. Putting him back in the cage is practically you self-sacrificing yourself. I don't think the Israelis, regardless, are not going to self-sacrifice themselves for the sake of the Palestinians. Now, whether that's for the sake
not for us.
Seculars,
for
seculars to somehow do, ensure that these these hillbilly, zealots don't take over Israeli society, well, it's too late. They already have. What are you going to do about it? Like, you're going to do civil disobedience? Okay, civil disobedience your way, what? I'll just unleash the Israeli police. You're just going to turn Israel into a more, draconian state, I guess. They're going to stifle all these protests. They'll probably declare a state law or state of emergency. That's what they'll do, for the most likely.
Well, look at the settlers. About 700,000 of them, right? About 400,000 actually live in that large block that bulges out into the West Bank. The rest are quality of life settlers for the most part that would gladly leave and move into Israel if there was housing in Israel. So removing the settlers is not going to be an issue. The blocks, these big cities of settlers that are attached to Israel at the base. We already agreed back in Oslo that this is going to be the 67 border. So they're going to be. No, I'm not saying Oslo. I'm saying we agreed on the 67 borders. That still stands. We're not going back to the 48, right? We agreed on the 67 borders, give or take. And these.
There's no way.
No, these blocks are in that 67 border. So you're not getting rid of very many settlers, and I think they will go back to Israel. I think America will pay to have housing built in Israel for them. And that just leaves the Palestinians in the West Bank, and now you can't really. There's no security threat. You could have a border wall. You could have your checkpoints there, but it just leaves the West Bank open. And what's going to happen once the West Bank is open like that? We don't need a state. All we do is we need to just build for ourselves and build an economy, and that alone will give us enough credibility to where, once we're built up, there's no choice for the UN but to declare a state. I think that's a most realistic scenario, where a state will kind of sneak up, for Palestinians without, going negotiating with Israel, negotiating with the Palestinians, and it will be imposed on us, and it will be about the 67 borders.
Israel, a two-state solution is also a disaster for Israel. Actually,
Yes, it is.
It's again demographic collapse, inevitable demographic collapse. Like it's just you can't have peace in general, a peace scenario. Even let's say a two-state solution takes place and a peace scenario ensues. Again, Arabization is inevitable. You have a fifth of the population that's Arab. It's going to connect with the new Palestinian state. They're going to be empowered by a Palestinian state, just like how Jews are empowered by an Israeli state, by a Jewish state. Palestinians overall, all over the world, they're going to be empowered by the presence of a Palestinian.
And you don't need a two-state solution. You just need Palestinians to be left alone, and for Palestinians to be able to build an economy.
It's not about us. They don't want to leave us alone because we are an existential threat.
Yes, the threat is more if they don't leave us alone, then they would have to look internal at their own affairs. So they don't have the Palestinians to concentrate on. So even if we don't have a state, just saying,
selling a recipe for disaster for them.
Yeah,
at this point, it's like how far can you delay this? Delay the inevitable.
Do you see Israel? No, forget two states. Forget two states. Do you see a scenario where Israel would be forced to allow the Palestinians to have the West Bank in terms of being able to build it, including Area C, or most of Area C, to be able to build an economy and not call it a state, but to govern themselves and build an economy?
No. You don't see them allowing prosperity even in the Palestinian territories.
Because it would be a threat.
Territories.
It would be a threat to them.
Threat. Yep. There will still remain the population growth.
But you're saying population. I think it's more of a threat because if without the active occupation, with all these resources going to that, then where are all these resources going to go? If Israel isn't rallying behind the flag in terms of the occupation, even just leaving us alone would be a threat because now they have to look inwards and fix their own issues within Israel, which is something that Israelis do not want to do.
Israel can fix their own social issues. There's not really what are they gonna do at the end of the day? But what are they gonna? They're gonna sit there and watch a rising, prospering Palestinian demographic. They can fix their internal issues, but then what? It doesn't solve their existential problem. That's the problem.
No, it doesn't.
And at the end of the day, you're giving up what? In the mindset of you're somehow religious and leaning Jew. At the end of the day, Jerusalem and Judea, this is the Jewish land. The Judea is the Jewish land, technically.
Ironically,
if we give this up, we're practically losing for the 4th, 5th to 5th time in a row.
Wait, what do you mean giving it up? Giving up the West Bank? I didn't say that. I'm saying don't worry about it being a two-state solution. Something even less than that.
Because we don't. The 90s.
No. Just having something.
You want to go back to that transition period between 1994 to 2000. That's what you want. And you want to be stuck there.
No, No, not stuck there, not stuck in that position. I'm saying, do you not envision that Palestinians will build if they were left alone and all these hundreds of checkpoints were removed?
Prosperity, growing population, and then what?
And then we don't have to do anything, and then what? We don't have to do anything.
Population grows, prosperity. Then Palestinians are like, why are we not a state?
Right, but that would come years. That's not important to us.
You're kicking the concept down the road.
No. It's not important to us. I used to think it is important.
You think. You're not the future generation. The future generation will see everything that took place in the past, and they will want to fight.
No, I think if they see a Palestine being grown without it actually being called a Palestinian state officially by the UN, I don't think people would care very much. And on top of that, I think years down the road, 10 years from now, if the Palestinian economy and government is growing and is prospering and is organized, then the UN has no choice but to call it a state. Like, you can't argue that.
There you go. You have a state now.
Right, but we don't have to ask for one now.
You don't have to, dude. That's not a problem now. On the ground, it's a state. Even if you don't, the eventual reality of a Palestinian state is an existential threat to Israel. That's just a fact.
Yes, I get that.
Okay, so why would they allow an existential threat to grow?
I'm not saying why would they allow. I'm saying, would the world allow Palestinians not to? Okay, we're not asking for a state.
The Jewish state.
No. Would the world allow Palestinians to say, okay, we're not asking for a Palestinian state now. We're not. We would like to prove ourselves. Can we have Israel allow us to prove ourselves? And here are some. Here are some.
Israel doesn't want. Israel
doesn't. Right. That's what I'm saying. If you speak to the world and say, we're not asking for a Palestinian state now, we're just asking to be left alone so we could build our own economy. If you talk to the world this way, that just increases. That we would have an economy. Actually, a lot of Palestinians import directly from Asia. A lot of the economy.
We're part of the Israeli economy. We're their currency, their banks.
Honestly, that's minor. That's minor.
That's further integration.
No. I'm not saying we would take that. I'm saying we would have our own institutions. But we're saying is we don't need a state. Just give us, our land back and let us build our economy so we're not reliant on Israel, and Israel doesn't have to be bothered with us, and we'll have our own security force.
You want your own currency. You want your own government, practically. But, quote unquote, it's
Soon
not
you will hear the rights of man, the law of the master.
We don't even need a currency. We don't need a currency. We could use a dollar. No, we could use a
No,
dollar. The Jordanian,
read.
whatever. We don't need a dollar.
It would be a disaster if we adopt the Jordanian currency.
Okay, so we could use the dollar. We could use a Chinese.
We already, in a way, use the dollar. The dollar is being used. Okay, but still, it's not going to change anything. You're delaying the inevitable. If I'm an Israeli, I am not going to allow this reality to happen.
I'm not talking to you as an Israeli. I am talking to the world, the UN, the US, the people, social media, saying that, okay, we don't have to have a state right now, but we just want to be left alone. Can we get rid of the checkpoints? Can we get rid of the settlers? Enough of them so that we can build, and sustain ourselves so that no one has to give us handouts. That's what I'm saying, and that would increase the pressure on Israel to accept it. No, that's not true. No, we wouldn't.
We're not a state. We're not always going to need handouts.
No, Cynic, look at Singapore. It's not a state. It's a city. It's a very small city.
It's a city-state.
Yeah, it's a city. Well, I mean, it not being recognized, it is recognized by the UN. But I think
it's a country.
So
Go ahead.
pretty. It's so pretty. It's so clear.
And I remember, just real quick, in the 90s, there's this young punk white boy. He went over there and spray painted the walls in Singapore, and they gave him a sentence of 32 lashes for doing so. The U.S. was up in arms, so they brought it down to 18 lashes. And then he got on TV. He was like, "My bottom hurts. It was so traumatic. And he was crying. And he was 20-something years. I was like, "You're disgusting. You're not a man. Get out of here."
So, a single wrapper of chocolate on the streets. Then, I think early 2000s, it was $1,000 for a single wrapper on the streets of chocolate. Can you believe that?
The scary looking
state.
Listen to Mom.
Oh, forget about the state. No, just, what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, I've been.
We don't need currency. We don't need a central bank. We need.
Use your own currency.
We don't need our own currency right now.
He's saying you don't need that.
That's fine.
We could use someone else's.
All you want is security. All you want is security.
Security, so we can build an economy.
Okay,
You don't have. You know that. Palestinian people.
The scary looking fashion will help keep you safe.
But we don't have to bring that up. I mean, they know about it.
They know it.
But we are talking to the world, not Israel.
And you're not talking to the world. The world is being run by United States. The world is the United States.
Why are you not getting that? What part of that do you not understand yet?
The world is the United States.
I just want to strangle him.
In an American. Dude, if you're not getting this, it's your fault.
I am getting the fact that I know that I've learned that I have to speak to my audience. I have to know who my audience is and speak to them, just like the prophet did. He did this. He spoke to his audience. He spoke to different people in different ways. Speak to your audience. Who's your audience? It's not Israel. It's the people.
At the end, you can get all the people to agree with you. I think the whole world, pretty much, if it was up to a vote, yes, they recognize the Palestinian plight, and they'll tell you that this needs to end. But at the end of the day, who's in power? The United States. There's American interests in this, and there's an oligarchy in America that has a very strong representation of pro-Zionist. And these people are just not going to let this happen, at the end of the day. And I get it, it's going to come down to, this current, unfortunately for them, it's come down to this at this moment. This is the critical moment. They need to wrap it up. I don't believe they're going to be able to wrap it up. But that doesn't mean that they're going to concede or they're going to let us be. I just believe at this point they're going to push for annexation. I think that's the inevitable reality. I don't think that this is escapable. I don't think so, and I hope they do. This is the only way. This is how it all ends. I'm not counting on the world. I mean, hey, if the world comes through, and they simply go, okay,
Booger Man.
The Dow. Warheads are stockpiled outside the cities. There is no greater illusion than fear. No greater wrong than preparing to defend yourself. No greater misfortune than having an enemy. Whoever can see through all fear will always be safe. 47. Without opening your door, you can open your heart to the world. Without looking out your window, you can see the essence of the Tao. The more you know, the less you understand. The master arrives without leaving, sees the light without looking, achieves without doing a thing. "48. In the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less do you need to force things, until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. True mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering. "49. The master has no mind of her own. She works with the mind of the people. She is good to people who are good. She is also good to people who aren't good. This is true goodness. She trusts people who are trustworthy. She also trusts people who aren't trustworthy. This is true trust. The master's mind is like space. People don't understand her. They look to her and wait. She treats them like her own children. "50. The master gives himself up to whatever the moment brings. He knows that he is going to die, and he has nothing left to hold on to. No illusions in his mind. No resistances in his body. He doesn't think about his actions. They flow from the core of his being. He holds nothing back from life. Therefore, he is ready for death, as a man is ready for sleep after a good day's work. 51. Every being in the universe is an expression of the Tao. It springs into existence, unconscious, perfect, free, takes on a physical body, lets circumstances complete it. That is why every being spontaneously honors the Tao. The Tao gives birth to all beings, nourishes them, maintains them, cares for them, comforts them, protects them, takes them back to itself, creating without possessing, acting without expecting, guiding without interfering. That is why love of the Tao is in the very nature of things. 52. In the beginning was the Tao. All things issue from it. All things return to it. To find the origin, trace back the manifestations. When you recognize the children and find the mother, you will be free of sorrow. If you close your mind in judgments and traffic with desires, your heart will be troubled. If you keep your mind from judging and aren't led by the senses, your heart will find peace. Seeing into darkness is clarity. Knowing how to yield is strength. Use your own light and return to the source of light. This is called practicing eternity. 53. The great way is easy, yet people prefer the side paths. Be aware when things are out of balance. Stay centered within the Tao. When rich speculators prosper, while farmers lose their land, when government officials spend money on weapons instead of cures, when the upper class is extravagant and irresponsible, while the poor have nowhere to turn, all this is robbery and chaos. It is not in keeping with the Tao. 54. Whoever is planted in the Tao will not be rooted up. Whoever embraces the Tao will not slip away. Her name will be held in honor from generation to generation. Let the Tao be present in your life, and you will become genuine. Let it be present in your family, and your family will flourish. Let it be present in your country, and your country will be an example to all countries in the world. Let it be present in the universe, and the universe will sing. How do I know this is true? By looking inside myself. 55. He who is in harmony with the Tao is like a newborn child. Its bones are soft, its muscles are weak, but its grip is powerful. It doesn't know about the union of male and female, yet its penis can stand erect. So intense is its vital power. It can scream its head off all day, yet it never becomes hoarse. So complete is its harmony. The Master's power is like this. He lets all things come and go effortlessly, without desire. He never expects results. Thus he is never disappointed. He is never disappointed. Thus his spirit never grows old. 56. Those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. Close your mouth. Block off your senses. Blunt your sharpness. Untie your knots. Soften your glare. Settle your dust. This is the primal identity. Be like the Tao. It can't be approached or withdrawn from, benefited or harmed, honored or brought into disgrace. It gives itself up continually. That is why it endures. 57. If you want to be a great leader, you must learn to follow the Tao. Stop trying to control. Let go of fixed plans and concepts, and the world will govern itself. The more prohibitions you have, the less virtuous people will be. The more weapons you have, the less secure people will be. The more subsidies you have, the less self-reliant people will be. Therefore, the Master says, I let go of the law, and people become honest. I let go of economics, and people become prosperous. I let go of religion, and people become serene. I let go of all desire for the common good, and the good becomes common as grass. 58. If a country is governed with tolerance, the people are comfortable and honest. If a country is governed with repression, the people are depressed and crafty. When the will to power is in charge, the higher the ideals, the lower the results. Try to make people happy, and you lay the groundwork for misery. Try to make people moral, and you lay the groundwork for vice. Thus the Master is content to serve as an example and not to impose her will. She is pointed, but doesn't pierce. Straightforward, but supple. Radiant, but easy on the eyes. 59. For governing a country well, there is nothing better than moderation. The mark of a moderate man is freedom from his own ideas. Tolerant like the sky, all-pervading like sunlight, firm like a mountain, supple like a tree in the wind. He has no destination in view, and makes use of anything life happens to bring his way. Nothing is impossible for him. Because he has let go, he can care for the people's welfare, as a mother cares for her child. Governing a large country is like frying a small fish. You spoil it with too much poking. Center your country in the Tao, and evil will have no power. Not that it isn't there, but you'll be able to step out of its way. Give evil nothing to oppose, and it will disappear by itself. 61. When a country obtains great power, it becomes like the sea. All streams run downward into it. The more powerful it grows, the greater the need for humility. Humility means trusting the Tao, thus never needing to be defensive. A great nation is like a great man. When he makes a mistake, he realizes it. Having realized it, he admits it. Having admitted it, he corrects it. He considers those who point out his faults as his most benevolent teachers. He thinks of his enemy as the shadow that he himself casts. If a nation is centered in the Tao, if it nourishes its own people and doesn't meddle in the affairs of others, it will be a light to all nations in the world. 62. The Tao is the center of the universe, the good man's treasure, the bad man's refuge. Honors can be bought with fine words. Respect can be won with good deeds. But the Tao is beyond all value, and no one can achieve it. Thus, when a new leader is chosen, don't offer to help him with your wealth or your expertise. Offer instead to teach him about the Tao. Why did the ancient masters esteem the Tao? Because being one with the Tao, when you seek, you find. And when you make a mistake, you are forgiven. That is why everybody loves it. 63. Act without doing. Work without effort. Think of the small as large, and the few as many. Confront the difficult while it is still easy. Accomplish the great task by a series of small acts. The master never reaches for the great. Thus she achieves greatness. When she runs into a difficulty, she stops and gives herself to it. She doesn't cling to her own comfort. Thus, problems are no problem for her. 64. What is rooted is easy to nourish. What is recent is easy to correct. What is brittle is easy to break. What is small is easy to scatter. Prevent trouble before it arises. Put things in order before they exist. A giant pine tree grows from a tiny sprout. The journey of 1,000 miles starts from beneath your feet. Rushing into action, you fail. Trying to grasp things, you lose them. Forcing a project to completion, you ruin what was almost ripe. Therefore, the master takes action by letting things take their course. He remains as calm at the end as at the beginning. He has nothing, thus has nothing to lose. What he desires is non-desire. What he learns is to unlearn. He simply reminds people of who they have always been. She cares about nothing but the Tao. Thus, he can care for all things. 65. The ancient masters didn't try to educate the people, but kindly taught them to not know. When they think that they know the answers, people are difficult to guide. When they know that they don't know, people can find their own way. If you want to learn how to govern, avoid being clever or rich. The simplest pattern is the clearest. Content with an ordinary life, you can show all people the way back to their own true nature. '66. All streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it its power. If you want to govern the people, you must place yourself below them. If you want to lead the people, you must learn how to follow them. The master is above the people, and no one feels oppressed. She goes ahead of the people, and no one feels manipulated. The whole world is grateful to her, because she competes with no one. No one can compete with her. 67. Some say that my teaching is nonsense. Others call it lofty, but impractical. But to those who have looked inside themselves, this nonsense makes perfect sense. And to those who put it into practice, this loftiness has roots that go deep. I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and in thoughts, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world. 68. The best athlete wants his opponent at his best. The best general enters the mind of his enemy. The best businessman serves the communal good. The best leader follows the will of the people. All of them embody the virtue of non-competition. Not that they don't love to compete, but they do it in the spirit of play. In this, they are like children, and in harmony with the Tao. 69. The generals have a saying: rather than make the first move, it is better to wait and see. Rather than advance an inch, it is better to retreat a yard. This is called going forward without advancing, pushing back without using weapons. There's no greater misfortune than underestimating your enemy. Underestimating your enemy means thinking that he is evil. Thus, you destroy your three treasures and become an enemy yourself. When two great forces oppose each other, the victory will go to the one that knows how to yield. 70. My teachings are easy to understand and easy to put into practice. Yet your intellect will never grasp them, and if you try to practice them, you'll fail. My teachings are older than the world. How can you grasp their meaning? If you want to know me, look inside your heart. 71. Not knowing is true knowledge. Presuming to know is a disease. First realize that you are sick. Then you can move toward health. The master is her own physician. She has healed herself of all knowing. Thus, she is truly whole. 72. When they lose their sense of awe, people turn to religion. When they no longer trust themselves, they begin to depend upon authority. Therefore, the master steps back so that people won't be confused. He teaches without a teaching, so that people will have nothing to learn. 73. The Tao is always at ease. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. Its net covers the whole universe, and though its meshes are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through. 74. If you realize that all things change, there is nothing you will try to hold on to. If you aren't afraid of dying, there is nothing you can't achieve. Trying to control the future is like trying to take the master carpenter's place. When you handle the master carpenter's tools, chances are that you'll cut your hand. 75. When taxes are too high, people go hungry. When the government is too intrusive, people lose their spirit. Act for the people's benefit. Trust them. Leave them alone. 76. Men are born soft and supple. Dead, they are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant. Dead, they are brittle and dry. Thus, whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The hard and stiff will be broken. The soft and supple will prevail. 77. As it acts in the world, the Tao is like the bending of a bow. The top is bent downward. The bottom is bent up. It adjusts excess and deficiency so that there is perfect balance. It takes from what is too much and gives to what isn't enough. Those who try to control, who use force to protect their power, go against the direction of the Tao. They take from those who don't have enough and give to those who have far too much. The master can keep giving because there is no end to her wealth. She acts without expectation, succeeds without taking credit, and doesn't think that she is better than anyone else. 78. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the hard. The gentle overcomes the rigid. Everyone knows this is true, but few can put it into practice. Therefore, the master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. Evil cannot enter his heart, because he has given up helping. He is people's greatest help. True words seem paradoxical. 79. Failure is an opportunity. If you blame someone else, there is no end to the blame. Therefore, the master fulfills her own obligations and corrects her own mistakes. She does what she needs to do and demands nothing of others. 80. If a country is governed wisely, its inhabitants will be content. They enjoy the labor of their hands and don't waste time inventing labor-saving machines. Since they dearly love their homes, they aren't interested in travel. There may be a few wagons and boats, but these don't go anywhere. There may be an arsenal of weapons, but nobody ever uses them. People enjoy their food, take pleasure in being with their families, spend weekends working in their gardens. delight in the doings of the neighborhood. And even though the next country is so close that people can hear its roosters crowing and its dogs barking, they are content to die of old age without ever having gone to see it. 81. True words aren't eloquent. Eloquent words aren't true. Wise men don't need to prove their point. Men who need to prove their point aren't wise. The master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. The Tao nourishes by not forcing, by not dominating. The master leads. Tao Te Ching can be translated as the book of the imminence of the way, or the book of the way and of how it manifests itself in the world, or simply the book of the way. Since it is already well known by its Chinese title, I have let that stand. About Lao Tzu, its author, there's practically nothing to be said. He may have been an older contemporary of Confucius, 551 to 479 BCE, and may have held the position of archive keeper in one of the petty kingdoms of the time. But all the information that has come down to us is highly suspect. Even the meaning of his name is uncertain. The most likely interpretations, the old master, or more picturesquely, the old boy. Like an Iroquois woodsman, he left no traces. All he left us is his book, the classic manual on the art of living, written in a style of gem-like lucidity, radiant with humor and grace, and large-heartedness and deep wisdom, one of the wonders of the world. People usually think of Lao Tzu as a hermit, a dropout from society, dwelling serenely in some mountain hut, unvisited except perhaps by the occasional traveler arriving from a 60s joke to ask, what is the meaning of life? But it's clear from his teachings that he deeply cared about society, if society means the welfare of one's fellow human beings. His book is, among other things, a treatise on the art of government, whether of a country or of a child. The misperception may arise from his insistence on wei wu wei, literally, doing, not doing, which has been seen as passivity. Nothing could be further from the truth. A good athlete can enter a state of body awareness in which the right stroke or the right movement happens by itself, effortlessly, without any interference of the conscious will. This is a paradigm for non-action, the purest and most effective form of action. The game plays the game. The poem writes the poem. We can't tell the dancer from the dance. Less and less do you need to force things, until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. Nothing is done because the doer has wholeheartedly vanished into the deed. The fuel has been completely transformed into flame. This nothing is in fact everything. It happens when we trust the intelligence of the universe, in the same way that an athlete or a dancer trusts the superior intelligence of the body. Hence Lao Tzu's emphasis on softness. Softness means the opposite of rigidity, and is synonymous with suppleness, adaptability, endurance. Anyone who has seen a Tai Chi or Aikido master doing not doing will know how powerful this softness is. Lao Tzu's central figure is a man or woman whose life is in perfect harmony with the way things are. This is not an idea, it is a reality. I have seen it. The master has mastered nature, not in the sense of conquering it, but of becoming it. In surrendering to the Tao, in giving up all concepts, judgments, and desires, her mind has grown naturally compassionate. She finds, deep in her own experience, the central truths of the art of living, which are paradoxical only on the surface, that the more truly solitary we are, the more compassionate we can be. The more we let go of what we love, the more present our love becomes. The clearer our insight into what is beyond good and evil, the more we can embody the good. Until finally she is able to say, in all humility, I am the Tao, the truth, the life. The teaching of the Tao Te Ching is moral in the deepest sense. Unencumbered by any concept of sin, the master doesn't see evil as a force to resist, but simply as an opaqueness, a state of self-absorption, which is in disharmony with the universal process, so that, as with a dirty window, the light can't shine through. This freedom from moral categories allows him his great compassion for the wicked and the selfish. Thus the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret. The listener will notice that in the many passages where Lao Tzu describes the master, I've used the pronoun she at least as often as he. The Chinese language doesn't make this kind of distinction. In English, we have to choose. But since we are all potentially the master, since the master is, essentially, us, I felt it would be untrue to present a male archetype, as other versions have, ironically, done. Ironically, because of all the great world religions, the teaching of Lao Tzu is by far the most female. Of course, you should feel free throughout the recording to substitute he for she, or vice versa. As to method, I worked from Paul Carus's literal version, which provides English equivalents, often very quaint ones, alongside each of the Chinese ideograms. I also consulted dozens of translations into English, German, and French. But the most essential preparation for my work was a 14 years long course of Zen training, which brought me face to face with Lao Tzu and his true disciples and heirs, the early Chinese Zen masters. With great poetry, the freest translation is sometimes the most faithful. We must try its effect as an English poem, Dr. Johnson said. That is the way to judge of the merit of a translation. I have often been fairly literal, or as literal as one can be with such a subtle, kaleidoscopic book as the Tao Te Ching. But I have also paraphrased, expanded, contracted, interpreted, worked with the text, played with it, until it became embodied in a language that felt genuine to me. If I haven't always translated Lao Tzu's words, my intention has always been to translate his mind. Describing the indescribable, teaching the unteachable, pointing the way to the way. What does Lao Tzu think he is doing here? It can't be done. No way. Hence, Po Chu-yi, poet and stand-up comedian, wrote, "He who talks doesn't know, he who knows doesn't talk." That is what Lao Tzu told us in a book of 5,000 words. If he was the one who knew, how could he have been such a blabbermouth? That's the problem with spiritual teachers. They have to be blabbermouths. But their words are, in the traditional Buddhist metaphor, fingers pointing at the moon. If you watch the finger, you can't see the moon. How meticulous the great masters had to be. A monk asked Matsu, "Why do you teach mind is Buddha?" Matsu said,
that's withstood the test of time, right? This kind of thing doesn't just disappear overnight. They have this reputation of being safe haven magnets.
Yeah, relative to other currencies, yeah.
Yeah, relative to other currencies and just in general, right? So obviously gold is the number one safe haven. After that, it's been the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc. Whenever you see market volatility, it would be gold. I would say these two are even ahead of silver, right? Like even.
Wait, hold on. We need to slow down. The yen's inflation has been fairly high, from what I understand.
So there's levels to it, right? But if you go back 10 years, it would trade between the 120 and 100 range, right? Sometimes it will go as low as 130, but it's always range bound. The point is always. I'm saying when it goes too low, it's
if an
great
expert
to
does not
enter.
have some
It's
problem to vex
just
him
position yourself and wait for the headlines to present themselves, right? You might have to sit in it for a few months. People were laughing at me in the room when I was the yen was at 155 back then, and I said it's oversold. It's probably a good time to enter. There was an opportunity that came maybe a month after I said that. It corrected so sharply, came to the mid 140s. But look where it is right now. Once again, it's like less than 144.
Listen, the yen. The problem with the Japanese yen is that everybody was using everybody was basically taking loans in yen, and then they're buying dollar denominated assets, and then they're reinvesting it back in, and they're just taking LTV on LTV on LTV, and they're just loan looping back and forth, which is fine until it doesn't work, right? Until the yen and the dollar depeg, and then that's going to lead that can lead to a lot of trouble, right? But yeah, no, the yen is always fairly stable relative to other currencies on the margin, yeah. So you're right about that.
The way I see it, I literally keep Swiss francs in my safe deposit box. Right? I have bills of Swiss francs in my safe deposit box for this reason. Right?
I mean, I don't know, bro. I mean, all the government currencies suck. I mean,
everything sucks. That's why you gotta be have as much as everything as you can and be as diversified as you can.
I don't know, bro. I don't really believe in the diversification thing.
It's true. It's the law of large numbers. I've actually seen it play out in my portfolio where if I would have done it a different way, it would not have worked out. I'm just saying you get these outliers when you really spread when you spread it as much as you can, and it's just an index. It's just pure statistics.
I mean,
I entered WTI the other day when it dropped to 61. I bought WTI, and like a Juche, right? Another room. He was asking me today. He's like, "Why? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense." But look, the trade worked out for me. I'm up 10% on my position. If it went against me, I would have dollar cost averaged, plain and simple strategy. Nothing fancy. This is what I look for: is these sort of. I don't stick to one particular asset class. I go across the board and I look for these opportunities where something is heavily oversold, and it just the odds are the probabilities aligns in my favor.
Yeah, smart. Yeah, Juche's a good guy. He's like I don't understand his strategy though, but his strategy is a little weird.
Yeah, it is very weird, and I think so. He sent me a couple of the podcasts he listens to. I think he follows these gurus too much, who claim to be technical experts. I think technicals has its place. Fundamentals have their place, right?
You mean TA? You're talking about?
Let me.
You're talking about charting, or are you talking about Arthur Hayes, stuff like that. I mean, he's basically
Lonely
he's
Republicans.
basically like, dude, I've known Juice for such a long time. I even worked with him with the Vagabonds when I worked with them, right? Can you hear me? Yeah. Dude, his problem is that he's like so bullish on China, and he's just fucking wrong.
It was the one that you were claiming you didn't know what morality was, and he was pressing you on that. And he found it to be kind of ridiculous that you were being disingenuous to claim that you didn't understand the concept of morality. And so it ended up with you basically kind of just playing like aloof or something. I'm not sure exactly what you were doing, but he was like, okay, I'm not
Is
gonna
that
do
you
this anymore.
projecting, Andrew?
Huh? What'd you say? Oh, comedian's gonna troll, so just be careful. Good to see a comedian.
It's not a troll. It's not a troll. I mean, I'm a professional.
I remember that.
Communication is hypnosis.
Okay. You have too many clowns. You have too many clowns on the stage.
Yeah, let's get on the God claim. So, I want to hear the best argument for the existence of a God, and what God do you actually claim to exist for anybody on the stage?
Andrew, feel free. God exists. Be called.
I'm tired of listening to Andrew. Andrew fucking talks too much. Sorry.
It shouldn't be about talking too much. It should be about making the case.
Nah, that was a joke. That was a joke. But I do want to hear from anybody on stage.
I think it depends on what angle you're coming from. If you're coming from, if you're trying to convince atheists versus you're trying to convince somebody from a different religion, so it would depend on where you need to come from.
No, it's not.
I like that you platform Andrew,
saying,
but
like,
not
what,
a troll.
just your best, like, convincing argument.
Here's one
Regardless of who you're
recently
talking
that I took a liking to. Interpretations of quantum physics are shown to presuppose the reality of consciousness. But if a minimal realism about the external world is true, then the consciousness presupposed by quantum reality cannot be only that of the scientific observer, cannot be only local, but must be global. Global consciousness is argued to have all and only the essential properties of God. Quantum reality depends on God's consciousness, and the physical world depends on quantum reality. Therefore, the physical world depends on God's consciousness.
So that would be your argument to a layman
Comedian, we will record the words of the
about
master.
the existence of God.
Not even layman.
Well, that's one recent one from the Faculty of Philosophy out of Oxford.
Oh,
Well,
okay,
let's not look at it as layman. Let's look at it as every concept that they said, right? So start over. Don't speak so quickly that nobody can interject and think that they see something wrong with it.
So, I don't understand what you're asking.
No. So dude just spoke and said that they have, based off essentially quantum mechanics. Now I'm listening the whole time, and I'm trying to think about what their statement is, and it's so quick that it doesn't seem like we have a way to think about the counter argument. So step by step, dude, tell us the study that
Objective
you came
quantum
across.
metaphysical
It would
mechanics.
help if you drop the link of the study, and then we could read it alongside and see if what you say is what they say, or if you've come to a separate conclusion from what the article actually says. But so start again.
Okay, yeah.
So definitive.
And this is Stephen Priest from the Faculty of Philosophy from the University of Oxford. Interpretations of quantum physics presuppose the reality of consciousness. But if a minimal realism about the external world is
So
true,
presuppositions is the claim.
right?
That was just
But
only the master's words. I
if
listened to
a minimal
Seneca for 30
realism
minutes.
about the external world is true, then
then the consciousness presupposed by quantum reality cannot be only that of the scientific observer, cannot be only local, but must be global. Global consciousness is argued to have all and only the essential properties of God. Quantum reality depends on God's consciousness, and the physical world depends on quantum reality. Therefore, the physical world depends on God's consciousness.
So, I'm not reading anything that you've sent, and you haven't sent anything out.
It's in the back channel for sure.
Hurry, the master does not tarry.
Or the back channel. Sorry if you sent me something. Then
Does not tarry
I'll
a
look at it.
daughter.
So
Or in the chat. Is the
Everything
right
must be business way.
I'm looking. Okay. I'm gonna read this before I speak to you.
Swiftness.
Because I think that that's what good faith.
Hurry, the master does not tarry a daughter. Everything must be in a business way. Swiftness.
Mute up, and then I'm gonna read this and see anything. I'll be.
Do you guys remember my question? Alright, I'll ask it again. What would be the best argument? And we went to quantum physics.
Alright, I got
Go late first.
Hurry, the master does not tarry a daughter. Everything must be in a business way. Swiftness.
Alright, good.
Alright, if I walked you into a library and told you that all the books in alphabetical order and everything organized in the library happened spontaneously out of nowhere, would you believe me?
I would have to see evidence.
You would have to see evidence that happened randomly?
No, I would have to actually investigate what you're claiming.
So you would not walk into the room and think, no, some intelligent design did this?
No.
Okay, fair enough. That was the argument I was going to make, that if you couldn't walk into a library and say, this was done by some intelligent design, then you couldn't look at the world and not think that either. So
I mean, after investigating it, then yes, I would say yes. This was intelligently designed, yes. But that would require me investigating it and also finding that there's evidence during my investigation. So yeah, I don't understand how this isn't an answer to my question.
Well, because some people I've spoken to said, well, it'd be impossible for me to walk into a library and think that this just happened randomly. All the books in perfect alphabetical order, lined up, decorated, organized, and this happened just randomly. They're like, I would never believe that. Well, and a lot of people said that they would never believe that. So I'm like, well, you would never believe that. If not, then you have to also believe that the world and how everything is organized in the world would have also had to have been done by intelligent design.
I don't think those two things are comparable.
I would argue they're not, because I would argue that the world is much more complex and designed than the library. So if you couldn't fathom the library, then you would have to concede to the idea that the world was created by an intelligent creator.
So one thing is saying that when you posit the librarian or whoever, we know that was something that was designed by humans. First of all, second of all, we know that it was organized. So that, and when you compare that to the existence of anything or the world, you can't say that. Okay, so what comparable thing in the world can you say that is comparable to someone organizing books in alphabetical order?
genes in your DNA.
Can you elaborate?
Well, if you look at genes and how they work to like describe how tall you're going to be, what color eyes you're going to have, what kind of blood type you're going to have, like when you look at all the things that makes a human person, it's much more complex than alphabetical books in a library.
No, I agree with that. But I'm saying that it's not. I don't think it's comparable to just simply like alphabetizing books and like it's a lot more complex.
Yeah, it's a lot more complex. So something as simple as looking at the library, like if you walk into your brain would initially go, somebody had to have done this, right? I don't have evidence, but I'm alluding to somebody probably did this. Like, right? You like you could go, I need evidence to prove that, but I'm probably assuming somebody did this, right? And so most people, if you're being intellectually honest, would go, somebody probably set this up, right? And so if you can look at a library that's not as complex as the human gene and how people are set up, you would probably go, well, if somebody did intelligent design that library, the world's much more complex and much more organized in a lot of areas than that. I would assume that some intelligence design
Dude wrote the Port Huron statement
of the universe.
No, see, that's a leap in logic. Because we know.
Not only that.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Not only that, but can't believe we're entertaining intelligent design.
She loves the law.
Arguments, but go ahead.
She's a
Yeah, no,
Thelemite.
you're right. I don't believe intelligent, but that's a leap in logic because
She's a Thelemite, not a Muslim.
a library, we know a person did that.
Well, what if you didn't know, right?
That doesn't mean you can extrapolate to, okay, we have to assume someone did this other
Prove it.
thing that's also
Prove it, Scarlet Woman.
designed. Seems to be designed.
Well, okay. What if you took humans off the planet? You never met another human being. You just walked into a library. You never met a human being.
Library don't exist at that point.
But I'm saying like let's say you never seen a human being. You walked into this space, right? It doesn't have to be a library, and you saw a formation of whatever rocks lined up. From smallest to biggest, color coded. Would you think somebody set that up there, or would you think that just happened randomly?
I don't